Welcome to the introductory episode of the podcast, Human Rights in America, a Revolutionary Mindset. I'm your host, Sue Young. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to me. Who am I? And why should you go on this journey to review human rights in America? I'll answer the first question. Who am I? Professionally, I'm an attorney for over 20 years. I started off in criminal law, and then I went into medical insurance defense, and then I worked for insurance companies for 17 years. But before I went into law, I was in medicine. I did organ and tissue donation. But before that, I have been everything in between. Oh, and I'm a pretty good dog sitter too. I should also tell you that I love to volunteer. I've delivered Meals on Wheels. I've worked at food banks. And currently I work with Seroptimus International. We empower, educate, and give opportunities to women and girls to ensure their financial futures. You're probably wondering, how did I get involved with human rights? I didn't learn about human rights in grade school. I did not learn about human rights in high school. I didn't learn about human rights until my last semester of law school in an international law class. I loved that class, but because America did not fully embrace or incorporate these laws into our everyday practice, I didn't think I could find a job where I could make money to pay back my student loans. So I went in another direction. And guess what? 20 years later, America is in the same boat. We don't have all of the human rights incorporated into our laws. And also motivation came from a Stevie Wonder song. I mean, have you ever had that? You have like a song for the theme of your life? Well, if you listen to a Stevie Wonder, if your love cannot be moved, there's a line in that song that says, you can't form a line if you're too afraid to stand alone. Well, I'm no longer afraid to stand alone. So that's what this podcast is all about. I'm going to advise you of your human rights. And just as a teaser, the United Nations recognizes 30 human rights. And by my count, America has only incorporated 6 of those rights into our laws. Disclaimers. I told you that I had legal experience, but that does not mean that I know everything. So, for instance, there could be a school in Kansas that actually teaches human rights. Well, that's great. I don't know everything, so I Google and I do my research. And in my initial interviews with school representatives, I know that in America, we do not teach human rights in the general curriculum in our schools, in our public schools. And yes, there are some great people and organizations that are out there doing their things. So, for instance, there's Karen Turner on Sirius XM, Urban View, Channel 126, if you're interested. She's advocating for civil rights. Then there are so many educators out there trying to change the curriculum to include human rights. And lastly, the ACLU, to me, is the champion of our human rights. In this podcast, I simply want to provide the basic information and topics from today's world and let you be the revolutionary thinkers with the revolutionary mindsets to change America. You see, I think Americans will go to the end of the earth to help those who need their rights because we're all in this together. One for all and all for one. Yes, we should be leaders for the world, but we should be even better leaders at home. Here's an invitation to become one of those individuals with the revolutionary mindsets that change the world. In the words of Gil Scott-Heron's poem from 1979, he said, "The revolution will not be televised." Or an updated version of that could be, "The revolution will not be streamed." Most importantly, I want to give you a layout of the format and the timing of this podcast. In the first couple of weeks, I simply want to give you all 30 human rights because I don't want it to be months in between the time you get the first and the last human. So I'm going to go through the whole list of 30, and then I'll go back through them and we can digest them one at a time. So in the next couple of weeks, I will air episodes once a week. And they're about 30 minutes. That's what I'll try to get to. And then thereafter, when we go into them individually, I'll record the podcast every 2 weeks just to give you time to think and to live out loud with takeaways. So a takeaway for next week, a call to action. What can you do? Think about this. If you had a gun to your head, could you name the human rights? Incorporate it into our laws? Where did you learn them? Do you know about the other 24? My website is under construction, but it is hrrevolutionarymindset.com. Google UN, Declarations of Human Rights, and download a copy for yourself. We can go over them together next week, or you can just listen to me give you all 30 in the next couple of weeks. This stuff is not a secret. I'll say it again. Human rights, it is not a secret. Just listening today is a start. In closing, I just want to say thank you to all my friends and family who have encouraged me, given me technical advice. And yes, a big shout out to my nephew Brandon, yay, who gave me the music for the podcast. I was so worried about it. Until next time, be revolutionary, be human.